Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I picking up the mic? All right. All right, thank you all for coming this morning. I'm really excited to talk to you about some new innovations. My name's Austin Snook. I'm the Dairy Marketing Manager at Merck Animal Health, and just wanted to kick things off by giving a brief introduction into our new platform, Empower, that we launched this year. If you've been by our booth, you've seen and heard a lot more about that, but really, it's our new dairy platform, and what it represents is just everything that Merck Animal Health offers to dairy producers, whether that's in any of our 6 pillars. And so today we're going to be talking specifically about calf care. And one of the foundations of our calf care pillar is innovation. And so when you look at Merck Animal Health and the products that we provide to dairy producers to take better care of their calves, really, it's those products where you say, my gosh, I don't know how I did this without this product. Is the mic not working? A little quiet. Yeah. Is that better? How about now? Is that better? Okay. All right. Okay. So, yeah, when you think about the Merck Animal Health calf care portfolio, really it's innovative products like the only intranasal vaccine that allows you to vaccinate against the 5 major BRD-causing pathogens all in one vaccine. It's the only pour-on anti-inflammatory drug to control pain and fever in cattle. And now, with the addition of some of our new monitoring technology, it really just takes that to the next level. And so now today we're going to be talking not only about how to, prevent disease and how to control disease, but also how to detect disease and to use technology to take better care of our calves. So with that, I will introduce one of the great minds in the animal monitoring industry, and someone who is going to give you a very entertaining presentation, I'm sure, Mr. Brandt Kreuscher.
Thank you, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? I probably don't even need the mic, but I'll use it anyway because that way you don't fall asleep. So I appreciate your time. It's a piece of your life. It's the most valuable thing you have. And so for those of you that, there's some familiar faces, no throwing anything, okay? That's kind of the only ground rule I have. I'm here to represent a wonderful, gigantic group of people that have delivered a product that I think is really, really special. And there are things that you look at, as Austin mentioned, that change the way we do business fundamentally, and this is one of those things. How many people here raise calves or have a responsibility to raise calves? Raise your hand. How many people are here just because they want a seat? Okay, so perfect. At least we're honest, right? So of those of you that raise calves, how many of you believe that you really have a detailed calf animal health detection protocol that is well thought out and well executed and well conveyed to new employees? Raise your hand. How many of you think you have it? How many of you wish you had it? Okay? So that's kind of what this is about. So when Merck Animal Health has a long history of developing products for treatment, for prevention of disease. The piece that we didn't have for calves was monitoring, okay? The ability to monitor calves, to understand what we're doing and how we're managing calves, or in some cases, how we're not managing calves as well as we could, right? So the whole goal of this is to help us understand which calves are not having a normal day. Does that make sense? So those of you that have experience with cow monitoring, it's the same concept, but one of the things that I'm so proud of is this is a journey in terms of developing a product as a leader in animal health monitoring in the dairy industry. This is an odyssey that really began back in 2016 with data collection. So this wasn't something that we just rushed to the market. This is something that was well thought out, well worked through, and I'm going to kind of share with you, a quick flyover of some of the things that we learned. So it is the first calf monitoring product that can monitor calves from birth to 12 months, okay? And it turns out, for those of us that didn't realize this, calves are critters of habit just like cows. It's just their habits are different. The things that they do are different. The amount of time that they spend doing those things is different, right? But they want to do essentially the same things every day. And that's kind of the basis of monitoring, is understanding what a normal behavior is and then executing beyond that. The challenge is to do it objectively the same way every day, right? How many of us do the same quality work every day? I do, because my boss is somewhere out there. So I do, every day, same quality work, right? But the reality is, we're people, we're humans, and how good are humans at repetitive tasks? So I send somebody out to look at calves, and they've been well trained. Do they even do the same job every day to the same level? So the goal is to make the data objective, to say, okay, we're measuring the same thing all the time with the calves, just like we do with the cows, okay? So how many people can kind of make out what is in this slide? Because I think this is really cool. My whole purpose at Merck Animal Health is they run monitoring solutions by me, and they say, if Brandt can understand this, it's sellable to anybody, okay? So that's my whole purpose. But how many people can kind of see calf hutches? Can everybody there kind of see, if you look deep enough and long enough, you can probably see 20 or so hutches? Does everybody see that? And how many people say, if I had to look at this group of calves, the calf on the right front would be the calf I would want to look at? Okay? So you guys already have the system then. Is that right? You already understand clearly you know how it works, right? That is the essence of what we're doing. Okay? The calf in the front right, what do you notice about it? It looks like my head, right? It's bright. Okay? So the goal is to really help us manage calves better. And when we look at calves in the dairy industry, it's probably the population that has the highest mortality and morbidity rates in the entire industry, right? What are the morbidity rates in calves? Anybody here know? Right? What's the rate of sickness in calves? The rate of sickness in calves is really hard to tell, because how do we normally determine it? Nobody? Anyone? Anyone? How do we normally determine it? By looking at, okay, how many calves did somebody say were sick, and report that they were sick, and record the treatments, right? So the challenge is, the reality is we don't even have traditionally good data on looking at how to raise calves. It's not because we don't care as an industry. We all recognize they're the future of the herd, right? But collecting data on calves is a terrible, terrible job, and we don't do it well as humans. So we're subjective no matter what we do. And ultimately, the result of that is, I don't know, these numbers are a little bit old, but 10% of calves don't make it through weaning. That's probably a little high. I think we're doing better at keeping calves alive than we ever did. But just because the calf lived through to weaning doesn't mean it necessarily enjoyed the experience, right? There are probably things, even with some of those calves, that we can do better, and we'll come back and touch that. Morbidity rates are really, really difficult to tell. What percentage of calves get sick? 30 to 50%, right? But difficult to tell, okay? So what are the challenges that we face in a calf rearing program? Okay, clearly, finding people that are capable of doing this, of looking at animals and finding sick animals, the Lord isn't making more of them, right? So to find people that are really capable of looking at calves and detecting a calf that's having an off day for a closer examination is really a challenge. Secondly, if there's a drift in your calf management program, it's often really, really hard to tell that there was a drift, right? So I can look at treatment rates, but what do treatment rates tell me? They tell me how often somebody treated calves, right? So if I have somebody that's really, really okay at what they do, but they're bad at reporting what they do, or they're bad at recording it, or they're not very good at their job, and I replace them with somebody that's really, really exceptional at finding sick calves and exceptional at reporting those data, in 6 months, I would look at my records, and what would they tell me about that person? Oh my gosh, I got to fire them. I have more pneumonia and more scours than I ever had, right? But the reality is, they may be doing a far better job. It's just the subjectivity and the recording of data becomes a real problem. So detecting changes in the program is really a challenge. Thirdly, even when there is a change in the program, the outcomes are so lagging, right? So how do we determine when a calf program has a failure? Anybody have a yardstick that they use to determine when there's a problem with the calf program? Okay? So these are some of the challenges, right? If I told you guys, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to look at your family members every day for 3 to 5 seconds. And you're going to try and determine if they're feeling well and having a normal day or not. 3 to 5 seconds every day. And then we told your family members, oh, make believe that you've been selected for thousands of years to do everything you can to look good when that person's looking at you, right? Because that's calves, right? When we look at them, they are bred to say, I feel really good. I am not the one in the herd that doesn't feel good, right? What would your success rate be looking at family members to determine if they feel right or not? Pretty bloody low, right? So that, in essence, is kind of the challenge. And to train people to do that and expect them to do it well day in and day out is really, really difficult. Then when we get to the failure in the system, what's the most expensive animal in a calf program that I raise? What's the most expensive animal I can raise? How many people think it's the calf that gets to weaning and then succumbs? How many people think it's the calf that gets to breeding age and then we decide, yeah, she's not right? The worst, to me, the most expensive animals are the animals that calve that we never knew were compromised as calves themselves, right? So we have a 2-year-old, she comes fresh, she doesn't perform the way we expect her to perform. We don't even have the understanding to say, why did this happen, okay? So this slide, which of the 3 animals in this slide isn't feeling well today? Okay? For those of us that do sick animal detection or have done it before, we've already spent more time looking at the animals we can see in this slide than the average farm would spend looking at them for health detection today. Agreed? Which of those 3 doesn't feel well? Which of those 3 isn't having a normal day? Well, you guys should be going, wait a minute, there's only 2, right? There's only 2. The reality is there's 3 because I can see 1, 2, and 3, right? So let me see if I can help you. Does that help? How many people think it's 1 on the left? 1 on the right? 1 in the middle? I'm just here for a seat. Okay, so the 1 in the middle, we light up. And we say, look, this animal is not having a normal day. So if I'm going out to look for animals that need attention, what did I do to the time spent trying to identify the animals that need attention? How much did I reduce it? See, I took math in college, so I know this. I reduced it by 2/3, didn't I? I don't need to worry about the animal on the left or the animal on the right. It's the animal in the middle that I need to look at. That animal needs human attention to make a diagnosis. Is this animal okay? Just an off day? Is there something else going on with that animal? Okay? So, again, we started data collection in this, 7 years ago. And we really worked through it, and then we said, okay, what we really need to understand is, it doesn't matter if it works, right? There's a lot of things that work, and just because you do them doesn't mean you should, right? Or just because you can do them doesn't mean you should, right? So, yes, it worked. Could it help? So we put this out on several dairies, and this, if you want to watch a shameless plug video, you can scan that link there. But basically, this dairy said, look, we don't look at 800 calves a day. We look at the 30 or 40 that show up on the list as abnormal. It saves us time, and probably just importantly, is it makes my people better, because my people are spending time looking at the animals that need attention, and they understand, okay, I can focus on these animals because I don't need to worry about the animal on the left or right. I know that animal's okay. That makes sense to everybody? Okay? So a little bit about how the system works. We know that calves don't do the same thing as cows. They do the same thing as themselves. That kind of sounded ridiculous, but you get the point, right? They want to do the same thing every day, but what calves do, what cows do are different. Okay? And so it stands to reason that what calves do and what heifers do is different. And so in our system, we can take suckling calves, okay? It has to be bottle-fed or nipple-fed calves. They can be in group housing, they can be in individual housing, doesn't matter to us, but they have to be suckling because there's a top secret behavior that we look for in those young calves. And we can see more details about suckling than most of us even care about, right? But we can see those details in suckling. That's one of the animal behaviors that we look for. But to do that, we apply the tag, and we define a group as a suckling group in our software, and then that software says to all the tags that are out in that group, oh, these are the algorithms, this is the map that tag should use because I understand that animal is a suckling animal. When the animal is weaned and moved out of that suckling group, the software says, oh, okay, this is now a young heifer algorithm. It's different than a pre-weaned calf. That software change just happens. I'll show you in a moment. But it's pretty straightforward. So those are the breakdowns of our different algorithms in the Youngstock program. So we have suckling calves, we have post-wean young calves, and then at 1 year they move to our standard heifer algorithm. And ultimately, the really cool thing is, it's exactly the same device. You put a tag in a calf, that tag can stay with that animal throughout its life cycle, or you can cycle it back and assign it to a different animal. So that's really a management decision, right? Any questions so far? I'm kind of just rambling up here, and I hate just talking. I like conversation. Questions so far? I'm doing a great job, right? So that was a joke. Okay, so here's the thing. If we apply a tag to a calf in the first 3 days, 4 days, okay, but not older than 4 days. In the first 4 days, if we apply a tag to a calf and assign it to that calf, in 27 hours, we can tell you if that calf is not having a normal day. And we feel uber confident, that's like really confident, that it'll work, okay? And we know it'll work, and we're doing it on thousands and thousands of calves now, okay? When the calf moves from a suckling to a non-suckling group, that's probably the most stressful experience that calf ever remembers, right? More so than parturition because there's no imprinting at that point. Calf goes to a non-suckling group. That's a big change in that calf's life, okay? And if it's individual housing, what do they do when you move them out into a group pen? They run around like wild Indians for about 12 hours, right? When we move them, in 25 hours, we can find a calf that's having an abnormal day, okay? We know that number. So, in our software, this is so simple, even I can set it up. But you go into the software and say, okay, this group is a suckling group. Change the algorithms on those tags. This group is a non-suckling group. Change the algorithm on those tags. At 12 months, they roll to the older heifer algorithms. Okay? And this is the essence of what we're delivering. Okay? We're going to tell you every day which calves are having an abnormal day and how abnormal it was. Okay? So we use a scale of 0 to 100. 100 is a perfectly healthy calf that's having absolutely a normal day relative to itself. And a 0 is either a calf that's not doing real well or a tag that's not doing real well, right? One or the other, okay? The cutoff is 86. And it's tailored at 86 to mirror what we did in the dairy cow monitoring. 86 is kind of the threshold for our health index. So 100, easy, good to go. Lower, more likely there's a problem. Okay? And at below 86, a calf will show up on this list saying somebody needs to pay attention to it. And we know which calves are having the most different day by this list. Make sense to everybody? This is the essence of what we do. It's not a diagnostic, it's a detection tool. It's telling us these are the calves we need to focus on. It's kind of like going to the doctor's office and the whole town is standing in the waiting room of the doctor's office every morning, right? Well, instead of the whole town being there, we're going to weed it out and we're going to say, here are the patients that are having an abnormal day that need attention. Okay? And we're going to record how many off days every animal has. We're not just going to tell you this animal had an off day. We'll list them on that animal record and say, this animal had 6 days that were not normal, and of those 6, I'm making this up totally, so don't look for it in this slide, but of these days, these were the ones that were really the worst days, okay? So it's a relative measure. And this is the really cool thing. We can tell the system, okay, pardon me, every day of the week, when your team is going to go out and look at the calves that need attention, we want the lights on the tag to come on from whatever time it is to whatever time it is each day of the week. And once that's set, the system just goes through at 6 a.m., you want the lights on. It says, hey, these calves are showing up as abnormal this time, 6 a.m. today. Turn the lights on and leave them on to 8 or 8:30 or whatever the time is that you set. Okay? So people don't need to even go out with a list. They can go out and look for the lights on the calf, which is allowing them to do more of what, right? The more time they're doing this, the less time they're doing this, right? So we want them looking at the calves, and that enables them to really do their job. They're not looking at numbers. They're looking at animals. They're just looking for lights and looking at animals. Okay? So this is kind of, I want to give you an idea how we did. So there was, in 2016, I said we started data collection. We did a lot of data collection. And then there was an event that happened. It was a local event. It was called, maybe you guys heard of it, COVID. Everybody remember COVID? Okay? So it kind of, everything stopped. I don't know about you guys, but like everything stopped. And we had a trial in the middle of COVID, and we had kind of worked through algorithms, said we think we got this. And so we had an opportunity to piggyback. We had a data collection team that was going out and collecting data on calves that normal people wouldn't collect. And they were doing it for another trial. We said, okay, you know what? We're going to put our monitoring tags on with the algos we have, and we're going to see in a group of about 1,000 calves, how do we do? But we're not going to look until the trial is done. We're going to collect all the data and then come back and look at what the tags told us and compare it to the dairy staff and the data collection team. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So if we look at things like visual observation, okay? So sensitivity and specificity, I have to explain these in ways that I understand. So specificity is the percentage of time that we have what you'd call a true negative. So in other words, when I say a calf isn't having an abnormal day, what percentage of the time am I right? Does that make sense? That's specificity. Sensitivity would be, in essence, the number of times that I say an animal is really not having a normal day, that it's actually sick. Does that make sense? So specificity is how many times am I right that the animal's okay. Sensitivity would be how many times am I right that this animal really has a problem. Does that make sense? Okay? So visual observation. How many people think visual observation is absolutely the best way to go? Well, the table's here, and it can't be wrong. It's data, and I'm wearing a suit, so it's got to be right. Right? So that's definitely not a great way to go. Wisconsin scorecard, calf scoring system. Much better, okay? But not really like where we all would say, yeah, this is exactly the way to go. Ultrasound is really kind of the gold standard, but how well does lung ultrasound work for digestive problems? Right? So it's measured against respiratory problems. It's really the gold standard, right? When I look at the specificity, I say, okay, 100% of the time, if lung ultrasound says this calf's so fine, it's respiratory, it's fine, okay? Pardon me. This is how we did, okay? In our trial, with a health index threshold of 86, that's that HI 86, okay? When we looked at our sensitivity and specificity, our specificity was right around 93 to 96%. Okay? What's specificity? Somebody help me. Throw it back at me. What's specificity? That's the.
If they're negative, they come back negative.
That's right. If we're saying they're okay, they're okay, right? Roughly 90, say call it 93% of the time, when we say this calf's fine, don't turn on the light, we're sure that calf's fine, don't turn on the light. Make sense? And our sensitivity, 63, 64%. So when we say this calf is having an off day, 63 to 64% of the time, that animal, they'll find something clinically wrong with that animal. Okay? Now, I say clinically wrong with that animal, and you guys might be able to help me. I haven't gotten the answer to this, so I'm hoping somebody can help me. I need somebody to explain to me the difference between subclinical and very, very, very mild clinical. What's the difference? There is a difference, and I think I have the answer. I think it's the person that's looking. That's the difference. Because I might look at a calf and go, wow, it's not lying on its side. It's healthy, right? And somebody else looks at the calf and goes, man, the ears are droopy, there's something going on there, and they'll pick that up. Does that make sense? So subclinical versus clinical in a field practice, really, really difficult to distinguish. So when we say 63%, we're saying, yes, 63% of the time this animal will show up as having clinical signs. Now, what's the difference between all of these and what we do? So, how many people have used lung ultrasound on calves? Okay, how often do you do it? How often do you do lung ultrasounds on your calves? Not very often, right? How many times do you use the Wisconsin scorecard to score your calves? Not very often. The thing we use routinely is visual observation. The difference here is we're doing this all the time, constant. Every hour is a unique test. So if I say for an hour and another hour and another hour, these are the numbers, what happens to my accuracy? It just gets better and better, right? So to me, this is really the exciting piece. Now, you say, okay, who would rather have higher specificity and lower sensitivity versus higher sensitivity and lower specificity? Who wants the latter? I don't mind if you miss a sick calf here and there. I just want to know every light comes on, a calf is sick. Who wants that? Nobody. So it is critical. We can increase the accuracy of saying this animal we're saying is abnormal day, it's going to be sick. We can increase that, but when we do that, the specificity will go down. In other words, if I say every animal has to be sick, then I've got to leave some animals and say, yeah, they're probably okay. Does that make sense? So I would rather have this. And the numbers, anecdotally, we feel like what's really happened is people aren't looking at it and saying, wow, I have too many animals to check. Right? If I say, go out, you're going to have 5 or 6 or 8% of the calves to check today, again, I took math in college, and I know that's lower than 92 or 93 or 94% that I can leave alone. I don't need to look at them. I can focus on the calves that need attention all the calves that are sick will be in the bucket of abnormal calves. And it's really straight, it's that simple. So that's a link to a kind of a short white paper that we did on the study I just referred to, okay? And it's really, truly that simple. You apply the tag to the calf at birth, and tomorrow we'll tell you if that calf needs attention. And it's just working. So to me, it's extremely exciting. I am very anxious to see what these animals look like in 2 years. What we're going to see. I think we're just fundamentally going to change the quality of replacement animals. So very, very exciting. I appreciate your time. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So when the light goes on, does your system give you any input, whether it's a respiratory concern, a digestive concern?
So great question. So the question was, when the light comes on, does the system give any indication as to whether it's respiratory or digestive? And the answer is, we cannot replace good people. All we can say is that this animal is having an abnormal day because we're looking at the behavior patterns of that animal. And so anything is possible in the future, but we are not, good people, we still need them. There's no doubt about it. We just want them to have the greatest impact on the animals that need them. And that's really what we do. So we don't distinguish. We just say, hey, this calf, somebody needs to put eyes on this calf. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So at what point will you be able to tell on a calf that's drinking out of a pail, not a bottle?
So the question was a really good one. At what point will we be able to do this with calves drinking out of a pail versus drinking out of a bottle or suckling from a nipple? The answer is, I really can't say. I mean, it's like Mark Twain said, I was gratified to be able to answer immediately, and I did. I said, I don't know. That's where I am. So it's a difficult thing. And it's funny, when we started, we thought, this should really, if we get one, we got both. And what we learned is we don't. So we know that. We are absolutely confident that that's the case. It's going to take a lot of work. Okay? Yes? So the question is, what's the data storage on the tag and how often does it synchronize with the main database? Really good question. And so I go back to the days when we were starting with RFID, and one of the big questions was, do we store data on the RFID chip itself, right? And at first, everybody said, wow, that's really a cool idea, until somebody said, well, how do we do any analysis with those data? They're sitting on 1,000 animals. What do we do with that, right? So the collective wisdom was data had to come in. The reason we store data on the tags is in the event that an antenna goes down, we don't want to lose those data, okay? And so we will store it for 1 day on the tag, and then if the antenna comes back up, the tag dumps all those data, and then the system sends a transmission to tag, says, hey, I got it, clear the data on the tag, reset, and run again, okay? So, and the reason we did 24 hours is because, quite frankly, if it's older than 24 hours on that calf, how much does it matter? It's already gone, right? Now I just need to know what happened in the last 24 hours in the worst case scenario. The tags report into our system multiple times. Each tag reports in multiple times an hour. Multiple times an hour. So the tag it's taking data and it says, okay, for this minute, this was the predominant activity that animal was involved in. Bundle that data, set it aside, and it just keeps doing that. And then at intervals, multiple times an hour, the tag dumps the data back to the system. The system says, oh, here's the latest data on calf 1, 2, 3, 4. How does that compare to what 1, 2, 3, 4 has done in the past, its age, where it is, and the time of day over the last 2 weeks? Okay? What's the read range on the antennas? So how many antennas would you deploy to read calves? So as an example, we're covering 5,000 calves in hutches at one site, and we have 4 antennas. Does that help? And the antennas, what we have to do is we put up a 40-foot tower, and only joking, okay? It's a box like this big, and we need to plug it into 110 power. We also make solar kits if it's a place where there just isn't any power. And then those report back into the network and everything goes. So it's just a little enclosure, nothing big. Great question. Yes? So the question was, how does it read suckling? And the answer is really well. We can see differences in suckling, and that's about as far as, I mean, it's kind of it's an algorithm thing, and I'm just not smart enough to answer that. I'm really just a chauffeur. I don't have all the answers. But we can see differences in suckling if that helps, right? So not all suckling is the same. Yes?
Are you getting any field feedback about tag size and/or location and risk of ear tag infection?
Okay. Yep. So I've been with Allflex for a while and did a lot with Allflex before I went to Allflex for a while. And you know, it's interesting because it comes to mind. I hope this farm isn't represented here from Canada. But every 2 or 3 years, they'd call and they'd say, we got this terrible ear infection problem. And then it would just go away. And we never tied it back to anything. It never made sense. So ear infections, no different than a visual tag or an EID tag. Okay? Tag placement is a significant thing. Tag weight is really significant. So this tag is a little bit heavier than our EID tag, but not a lot heavier than our EID tag. What we tell people is, if it goes on the ear halfway out or less, that's where it needs to be. Okay? So in our world, we say, well, of course, we want an EID in every ear. So the EID goes really in tight on the left ear, and then this tag would go just to the outside of that. Does that make sense? But that's a really good question, and it's a really important point. We'll read fine if it gets further out on the ear, but heavier tags or tags that are hanging further out on the ear, they're more prone to problems, right? Because just the ear flapping and the centrifugal force of that tag getting waved around, the heavier it is, the more significant it is. So a little weight difference is big. Great question. Yes?
We teach our veterinary students partial budgeting to help dairy farmers make decisions with things like this technology. What kind of changes in morbidity or mortality rates do you see to break even?
So, right. So the financial questions, this is I mean, it's a really, really good question, and we believe that the industry is going to help us answer this over time, okay? I will say this. What we really aren't sure of is, like I had a group of veterinarians ask me, well, how much does it change morbidity? I said, well, I have a better question. What's the morbidity now? I don't know. Like, I really don't know. We can look at treatment rates, but is that a good reflection of morbidity or a better reflection of employees? I don't know, right? So the morbidity question, we don't know. Mortality, when we look at it over the long term, I can tell you I see a drop in mortality. The other thing that I've had people say is they leave the hutches, and this is over years of using the system now, right? The trial sites that used it for a year and a half before we started selling it. They said, calves come out of the hutches, we don't see the problems as they transition to the group runs that we used to see, okay? So now how that translates to, we're going to work on that together, really. But I don't believe, I think what we're doing is so seismic, it's difficult. Like if I went to somebody that was lighting their house with candles and kerosene, and I said, let's do an ROI on light bulbs, it'd be really hard to do, right? But that's kind of where we are. I think we're in a light bulb moment. We're going to help people be better at what they do and do it more consistently, which allows us to manage it better, and it becomes that self-licking ice cream cone, right? So
Hey,
I
Brandt.
hope that wasn't a dodge, but it was the best answer I had.
Hey, Brandt, do you mind if I just add one
Yeah.
comment to that? So I think another thing to consider is, number one, the labor. where you're better utilizing your employees' time to only pay attention to the animals who need their attention, and so rather than have to visually observe every calf, that's one of the areas where you have a benefit. And then I think one of the things that it's still too early to tell, but what is the impact that this is going to have on the animal long term? I mean, there's been lots of research on if a calf has a case of BRD, pre-weaning, what is that impact on her lifetime milk production and things like that. So I think that's another aspect that the longer this system is in the market and the more we're able to research the long-term impacts, I think that'll be a big part of the ROI conversation as well.
But we, at the end, we will work on that together, right? I think there's clearly, it's one of those things that I think is so seismic. What the numbers are, it's like EID itself, right? We started with EID. Well, how do you get an ROI on EID? I don't know. I just know it works so well. Why would you not do this, right? So, any other? Yeah.
Does it work well in the extreme heat and cold?
Yep. It does. Now we will see things like, and we'll see group level events. Like one site, they had straight line winds, and it was like 18 degrees, straight line, 35-mile-an-hour winds, and they said, hey, we had a lot more calves on the list than we normally do. And I said, well, okay. They said, can you weed those out? And I said, well, we could, but then we always run that risk when we increase the sensitivity, right? We may miss animals. And they said, well, yeah, but it's a bigger list. And I said, it is. I said, let me ask you a question. When you have those conditions without the system, do you treat more or fewer calves on those days? And they, without blinking, they said, we treat fewer calves. And I said, okay, so that means one of two things. It means either the calves and the people don't care to connect on those mornings, or those conditions are good for calves. I'm not sure which, right? It's not that the conditions are good for calves. People aren't looking at calves the same way. Calves aren't coming out and behaving the same way. So the system sees that. And to me, that's a win. We definitely see it. And the numbers aren't dramatic, right? So great question. But the answer is yes. It's been tested through seasons, different conditions. And we're working on what we call a mass group effect. So we can kind of try and weed that out when it happens. So, yep. Any other questions? Yeah. I'm sorry? What's the cost? I'm probably, I don't know if Austin wants me to touch this because I'm the worst guy on all this. I think it's $3.80 per calf per month, I think, but I'm not. Yeah. But if I could pay somebody to watch a calf and know that I wouldn't miss that calf when it was having an abnormal day, to me, that's just a gigantic piece. So, guys, I want to thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciate it, and I hope you have a great expo. Thank you.